Alright, welcome back to my channel. Okay guys, I usually don't do this, but I'm sorry, I have to not mince my words. Avoid using GitHub Copilot. I'm not even gonna mess around. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to do this video, I just stumbled upon it while I was working on another project, as you see. But yeah, it has been not very friendly to me. And again, possibly because, I probably need to work on my prompts and so on and so forth. But right off the bat, a few things, I'm going to be very, very unorthodox about this video. So, few things you need to remember, okay? GitHub Copilot just got released for free on Visual Studio Code, and I've been avoiding to install it. Somehow I mistakenly clicked on it and it got installed on my extensions. Okay, fine. And I worked on this brilliant project, which I'm going to share the video with you. So subscribe to my channel. You see the full video how to build this from scratch on an Avengers Assemble Word Game. So I figured, it was too tedious or too difficult for a novice or a beginner. So I wanted to just build it on a console. Trying to get in there, I gave a few prompts to GitHub Copilot. But yeah, it came up with about 80 something lines of code, which is something that is actually a lot more than what I did in a complicated version. So just right off the bat, a few things to remember why I say you should avoid using GitHub Copilot. Number one, for me, major reason is the security concerns. The code that it gave to me was insecure. Secure coding is very paramount. If you watch the news anytime, every time, you'll see that there's countless news about cybersecurity, and this all stems from insecure code. So having code security concerns on tiny little project is something that's going to keep expanding and growing. All right. So that security concern worries me, bugs me a lot. Privacy is another issue because again, this is GitHub. It is public. Everybody will have access to this code, just like the code that it's using to train the data. So if you have an issue with your code or your project going public, you probably want to avoid using GitHub Copilot because everyone will have access to that code, which will be used to train the algorithm. And also very big is the context limitations. It doesn't really understand what you're trying to do, except you're really going to spell it out. Why not just go to DevOps? And I have some DevOps videos for you. And, come up with some user stories. If you paint a whole picture of it, then it's going to go ahead and build that app a better way or build that software a better way. So those are three already that we've talked about, and there are a lot more. So it's not going to understand the context. It's going to mess up your privacy if it's a project that is, needs to be protected. And it's not really big on security. At least I can say that right off the bat. All right. But you also have a black box effect. It's going to give you code that you really don't understand and it doesn't really get to explain it to you. So avoid using GitHub Copilot. Now, it's not always a bad thing. There's also some good that comes with it. There's a lot of good, as a matter of fact, that comes with it. Okay, it is free. Okay, even though I know for a fact that if there's a paid version of anything, the free version sucks. And they're trying to get you to get to the paid version eventually. For instance, if you've used Gemini AI by Google, I used the advanced version. Everybody used the advanced version when it was free. It was awesome. And then you get downgraded once they want you to, shell out some money. And then everything starts getting, the responses that you get back are not as accurate and not as good as the advanced version. I believe it's the same thing with Copilot. Maybe it's free because they want to gather more training data. Maybe it's free because they want to suck us in to get us to get to the paid version at some point. I don't know. But I wasn't really pleased with the product that I got. Nevertheless, it is very clever. There are some very, very clever lines of code or blocks of code that it spits out that could really help you out. So where should you really, or when should you really use this GitHub Copilot? You use it as a paired programming buddy, right? If you code by yourself, then you probably need GitHub Copilot to, help to improve some of your code. But if you already have a buddy on your team, then why not use them? And then you can get to review everything at the end. It becomes some kind of a mob programming scenario, because you have, programming by yourself is not optimal. Programming in a paired scenario is better, but what is optimal is having a mob programming experience. So again, all of that, you have to weigh it, and see what gives. Okay, it's just like having misinformation, disinformation, and all this information out there that we have to deal with. So going back to some other reasons why you should avoid using GitHub Copilot, it definitely is going to hinder your learning and development if you get to start being over-reliant on it. If you're a junior or newbie or aspiring developer, avoid using it. It's going to, this is something that affected me in my younger career, in my younger years. As a developer, I was having a very hard time catching on because I always wanted to depend on tutorials, reading, copying, and pasting, which you should avoid by all means. Also, I have some code on GitHub that I wrote ages ago. I'm pretty sure some of that code was also used to train this data. Being that there's so many other people out there that have outdated code with bugs and so on and so forth, that they could probably go back and, everyone that codes know that you hardly have any time to go back to refactor your code. So if this software has been trained on, even though it's recent code, it could still be outdated. If it's trained on code that is not optimal, then hey, what are we basing our responses that we get from? We're getting outdated code with bugs and so on. Also, you get redundant, a lot of redundant data, redundant code that's coming through, as you see in some of the coding experiences. So all in all, I highly encourage you to avoid using GitHub Copilot. So that is my honest opinion. Okay, it's pretty cool. You start typing and all of a sudden it's like the computer has a mind of its own. It predicts the next line of code, suggests you whole functions, completes an entire comment, and so on and so forth. That's all super cool. Super powered coding sidekick. Very good. But like I said, it is not perfect. So sometimes it gives you code that is a little bit iffy or maybe too clever for your own good. So review it clearly. Make sure it actually does what you think. And for junior developers, again, who are eager to get help, I'll advise you, make sure you review this with a senior developer. And for all those other ethical reasons that we talked about, Copilot does learn from other amounts of data with copyright issues, potential bias, and so on and so forth. All right. So to round it off, overall, GitHub Copilot is a very fascinating tool. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. But for right now, I'm going to go back to writing code my old-fashioned way and avoid using it by all costs. That said, let's talk about what we're looking at right now, or what we've been looking at. Okay, the green code you see, Avengers Copilot.py, that is currently on track. That is a code that was generated by GitHub Copilot. The other two files, app.py, is a web app version of the code, and Avengers.py is a simplified version, which is what my intention was before I ended up with Avengers Copilot.py. So here we have 83 lines of code for the version from Copilot, but we have about 45 to 50 lines of code with what you have right now on your screen. The One we actually coded by hand. Both codes are incomplete, but at least it's a start. Starting off, I can tell you right off the bat, our Avengers code, which was handwritten, which you see right here. Okay, we did copy the list from the Copilot code. It looks more secure. Okay, obviously we'll go back and leverage some of the code from the Copilot, the clever piece of code I pointed out earlier, just like you leverage input when it comes to paired programming with your body. So scrolling through, it looks okay. Let's go ahead and probably test it out, and we'll probably need to print out the contents, depending on, there are a few things that again, like I said, I'm going to do another video and show you how to code this from scratch to see how you get a console app, just like Hangman, and how you get a web app, which you see right here, which has a wonderful user interface. In between the console app and the web app, we'll probably create a GUI app, a standalone app that should work on your operating system of your preference. But again, the focus on today is having GitHub Copilot. And to get GitHub Copilot, you go into your extensions, you search it. Like I said, I got tempted, I clicked on it, and I have a bunch of other installed extensions, just 14 of them. The Copilot, Auto Rename, Prettier, Live Server, VS, CSV, as well as PDF, SSH, Windows Subsystem for Linux, and so on that I use for my other projects. But again, we've been able to test out Copilot. Just like Gemini, like I pointed out, these guys are still in development. Okay, so be very wary or wary how you use them. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and catch you on the next video.